Thank you. I am so happy to be here today with all of you. Thank you so much for coming, all of you speakers, students, everybody, our co-organizers. I'm particularly happy to be here because the first time I came to Ladakh was in 1986 to work with Helena and at Ladakh. So that was an amazing experience. I wasn't very old. And I carry it with me to this day, and I have incorporated a lot of the lessons from Ladakh into my own life. When I came here as a young woman, it suddenly made all sense to me. I came from a very industrialized country, and I came here and saw a place-based culture in close contact with the land and in contact with each other. And I took that with me. It was, as Geshe Dakpa was saying, talking about logic. It was a logical way of living. And I saw people that were amazingly creative with a lot of life skills for sustainable living. And I brought that into my life. So I've learned to build houses. I built my own house. I've learned to grow food. I grow my own food. I have a compost toilet. I would never have anything else. You can't have a healthy food economy if you don't have compost toilet, and many other things. So I thank you for that gift that I received back then, over 30 years ago. And so Economics of Happiness here today, the 21st conference. And so far we've had conferences on 5 continents, I think, in many, many different places, with other people that are also questioning whether the economy we have now is logic or not. So I did the wrong thing. What did I do? Oh, yeah. So, like I was saying before, place-based human cultures and economies like the one of Ladakh, this is what we've had for millennia. What we have now is very new. We co-evolved with our natural environment. So the majority of the societies around the world and the communities evolved with their natural environment and lived sustainably within ecological limits. It's only now in recent years, and in particular in the last 4 or 5 decades, that we've had economies like this global economy that is totally divorced from place. And when it's divorced from place, you don't see the consequences of your actions. So this global growth economy, which demands that we keep on producing more, earning more, and I'm thinking the GDP in terms of nation states or corporations that every single time have to have more growth, makes no sense, is totally illogical on a finite planet. How can we keep on? It makes no sense. Even a child would understand it, but not a conventional economist. Part of that growth path is, of course, how can these companies grow? Well, they can by increasing consumption. So there are a lot of people that say this is the problems we are down to human greed. I don't believe that, and a lot of us don't believe that. It's more to do with the fact that we are groomed to consume from the very early age. That is marketing strategies targeting children all the way before they are 1 year old. And on average, new studies say that on average we are exposed to about 5,000 adverts a day for one or another product. And that's not, you know, in the public domain, on the internet, on TV. And of course that has an impact on us. The economy is also one that's characterized by being very speculative and being based on debt. So money is made by private banks every time someone goes and borrows money, whether it's us, whether it's a nation state, or a big corporation. This is what makes the kind of destructive economy possible. You know, you want to go and drill in the Arctic? Yeah, you can do that because you can go and borrow money. And because the money is not tied to anything, we don't have to prioritize. No? In a household economy, we have to prioritize. How are we going to spend our money? Or how are we going to spend our food? No? If we don't have anything, the wealth we have is not tied to anything, this fictitious wealth, then we can do all sorts of things, including this kind of destructive growth. So that's part of the problem. So only about 3% of the money in circulation is actually tied to something real, which I think is gold. Let me see what, yeah. So part of the mechanisms that allow this global economy, corporate economy to exist are the free trade treaties. We'll hear more about them later on and in workshops that basically enable large corporations to move around wherever they want. So if we don't like it here, we'll go somewhere else where, for example, the salaries are lower, or where some governments say, come here and you don't have to pay taxes. No? So they can move around as they want, while place-based businesses can't do the same, which put them at a disadvantage. So part of this is we now have a centralization on almost every single production system in the hands of corporations. I've just brought one example. 10 corporations own the majority of the industrial food that is sold here, in Mexico, in England, in the United States. It just have different names, but they're the same companies. And another issue is the free trade mechanism and export subsidies and so forth are facilitating trade for the sake of trade, not because we need something that someone else produces, but because these corporations can make lots of money by carting things back and forth. An example is what we call redundant trade. We call it insane trade, where the same countries import and export the identical things, like potatoes, sugar, beef, coffee in the same amounts. And there is a direct correlation between the increase in international trade and the increase in CO2 emissions. So when we think climate change, think trade, international trade. And a lot of this economy is, we have this idea that big corporations, they do well, they do better because they are more efficient. Efficiency of scales. I've got 2 minutes. Subsidies, fossil fuel subsidies, $500 billion a year, $1 million per minute to industrial agriculture. Only 1% is given to regenerative farming. And it is a race to the bottom, which means lower salary everywhere, job security, environmental health. It's all being played out in this global economy. And it's an economy of inequality, where 8 individuals own as much wealth as the poorest half. Depression, loneliness, anxiety is on the rise, and, of course, the planetary crisis. But people are resisting against mining, against fracking, free trade, against climate. Today is the International Day for Climate Strikes. And what we need is a change in the other direction, towards local place-based economies operating within ecological limits, which means a shift in power from corporations to nation states, shorter distances between producers and consumers, and greater regional self-reliance. Localization can solve a lot of the problems we have today, and one of the things we need to focus on is building up local food systems, farmers' markets, consumer cooperatives, food stores with local produce, not international produce, local business working together in the face of this corporate economy. And what we're also seeing is around the world, people are wanting to live in community in connection with the land. So we have a rise in eco-villages and co-housing. And of course, a shift to renewable energy. And more important than anything, we need to educate our children, the new generations, about place-based knowledge and learning focused on food, nature and community and skills for sustainable living. So we need to both resist the corporate economy and renew on a local level and connect with others to make this change. Thank you so much.